Hello, today we're going to be mixing colors and we're going to begin with titanium white, alizarin crimson, cad red, cadmium yellow, lemon yellow, cerulean blue, ultramarine blue, and burnt umber. The first color we're going to mix is orange, so I use my cadmium red and my cadmium yellow. And I want to make sure that I've got all of the two colors mixed pretty well. You're going to need to use a little bit more yellow than red, because otherwise you're going to have a red orange instead of like a true orange. I'm going to mix the cadmium red with the lemon yellow to get a much brighter orange. So by mixing the cadmium red medium with the lemon yellow, you can see you get a much more vibrant orange. Next, we're going to mix some purple. So we're going to use the alizarin crimson and we're going to use ultramarine blue. And you can shift this to a warm purple or a cool purple depending on whether you have more red in it for warmer or more ultramarine blue in it for a cooler purple. And then it's going to be very dark, so I'm mixing a little white in it here right now so that way you can actually see what the color is. Now keep in mind that white is a cool color, so it will indeed kind of dilute and make the color a little bit chalky. But if you spread it over like a white paper, you will see. Next, we're going to use cerulean blue and alizarin crimson, so you can see what kind of purple that makes. And that makes a slightly brighter purple, just like your cyan and magenta on your printer makes a bright, beautiful purple. You'll get a brighter purple by using cerulean blue and alizarin crimson. To get an even better purple, you can use quinacridone magenta and cerulean blue. I'm going to again add just a little bit of white here so that way you can see like the color. They're pretty similar between the cerulean blue and the ultramarine blue, but the one using the cerulean blue is just a little bit brighter than using the ultramarine blue. Okay, so wipe your palette knife off in between mixing. Now I'm going to take a little cerulean blue and I'm going to mix our green. So I'm using two bright colors. I'm using cerulean blue and lemon yellow, and it's going to make a very saturated, very bright green that could be used for certain highlights when the light is coming through the trees. And you can see like those super saturated greens, but this is a color that you would only use for just like those rare few highlights. It's highly saturated. It's not a natural green, and it's not something that you're going to want to use on a regular basis, but it can have its uses depending on what you're trying to do. So instead, I'm going to use ultramarine blue, mix a little bit of lemon yellow, and this is more lemon yellow than ultramarine blue. And as you can tell, I'm mixing just a little bit of the ultramarine blue in there. So I'm mixing it up thoroughly so that way I get a nice consistent color all the way through. And as you can see, that looks like a much more, we call it desaturated or unsaturated. Also, it's a more natural looking green. And the reason for that is ultramarine blue is a purpley blue, so it's automatically got a little bit of red in it, so that will help neutralize the green color or desaturate. Now I'm adding some cadmium yellow medium to the ultramarine blue to get a further desaturated green, because the ultramarine blue is a warm blue, and the cadmium yellow medium is a warm yellow. Lemon yellow is a cool yellow. So as I'm mixing these together, you can kind of see that the cadmium yellow mixed with the ultramarine blue gives us a darker green, and it also makes it a little bit more desaturated. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just kind of smoothing out these colors so you can really see the differences between them. You can see the hypersaturated cerulean blue, and you can see the less saturated lemon yellow mixed with the ultramarine blue, and the very natural looking cadmium yellow mixed with the ultramarine blue. Now if you mix a little bit of purple in with your green, you will get a nice deep dark color that is great for your shadows in your trees. And you can adjust the tonal value by adding more of the purple and you'll get darker and darker shadow colors. And this is a wonderful color to use when you're painting trees and you need that really deep shadow color. This will get very dark, very deep, but will still have that warm green color, as opposed to if I were using just straight ultramarine blue, it would be a very cool green. But by adding the alizarin crimson to the ultramarine blue and making a purple, I get a nice deep warm green. Okay, so now I'm going to use a little bit of lemon yellow and add it into my very dark green, so you can see what kind of color I get there. It's a very kind of almost an olivey green, but it's lighter because the lemon yellow is a very light color. So I'm mixing that right now and getting a very thorough mixing, and you can see that's a very kind of like a, almost looks like a dull olivey color. Okay, next up we're going to mix some red orange by mixing the orange that we made earlier in alizarin crimson. And this color is a super deep saturated, almost like a fire engine red color that has a nice warm undertone to it from the orange. So it's a highly saturated red. Now we're going to mix a little bit of lemon yellow with the orange color that we had from earlier. And as you can see, we're going to get a very, very pale, but it's very vibrant though. It's a very vibrant color. So I'm going to grab some of my purple. I'm going to wipe off my palette knife so I don't contaminate my alizarin crimson. I'm going to add a little bit more red to it so I get a red-violet color. Notice I'm using the back of the palette knife to do the mixing. So I scrape the color off, you know, from the original color like alizarin crimson or ultramarine blue. And now I'm going to grab a little bit of white so you can kind of see the actual color that's in there. And as you can see, it's got a pretty strong red undertone to it, but it's still very, very purple. It's funny how the titanium white will literally kind of mute the color quite a bit because it's very, white is a very dulling color. So I added a little bit of orange into the green that I mixed from cerulean blue and lemon yellow, and look how, look what a beautiful job that orange does to desaturate that color. Just makes it a much more natural color. So I'm going to put a little bit more orange in there and further desaturate that color, but again it makes a beautiful rich green that is perfect for foliage. So when you're mixing your greens, keep in mind that you don't always just have to use red. It's a wonderful use of orange to put that into your green to kind of mix that beautiful green color. And now I'm going to bridge the two greens by blending them together. This is one of the benefits of using oils, is you can literally create whatever colors that you want just by mixing them together. And by mixing the two greens, I'll have a range of transitional colors from lighter green to darker green. And now I'm grabbing just a little bit of that deeper orange color to make a deeper green. So now you can see I have a light green, which is good for highlight. So I got a highlight green, I have a shadow green, and then I have a mid-tone green. And so you can mix these together and get lots of transitional colors. So grab a little more lemon yellow to make a little bit more of that highlight green color. And you can adjust this up or down depending on how much lemon yellow you add to it. Obviously by adding more lemon yellow, you'll raise or you'll drop the tonal value to lighter and lighter. Okay, now I'm going to smooth that out so you can really see that color. And now I'm going to kind of transition that, so I got to wipe off the extra so you can really see the transitional greens there. Okay, can you see that? Isn't that's just such a beautiful green. I love that. Okay, wiping palette knife off, and let's move on to our next color. Grabbing a little bit more lemon yellow, and I'm going to make an even lighter highlight color for green, because greens are one of the hardest colors to mix, especially when you're trying to get that very natural green. Got to put a little bit more blue in there, cool it down, and you can see where that's going. And then if I wanted to at this point, I could add a little bit of orange and desaturate that color. Okay, smoothing it out so you can see it. Adding a little bit of white. Now the white will cool the green down. So like this is good for like the morning time when you've got that grass green. And a lot of times the grass green in the morning will look like a cooler color, not like such a yellowy green. So you get a very cool green color in the morning when you get the sunlight hitting it, especially when the water is on it from the dew. And I've added a little bit of purple, a little more purple to my green to create a really deep shadow color that's going to be great for those shadows in the grass. So when you're painting grass and you've got those shadow areas, so add the purple. A little bit more yellow to bring the value back to warmer. I'm sorry, the temperature, bring the temperature back to warmer. A little more cerulean blue, cool it down a little bit. And it's this game of push-pull to get the exact color that you want between the lemon yellow and the cerulean blue, and also quantity. So like if you want more quantity, you're going to need to play the game of mixing a little bit more yellow, a little bit more blue, depending on where you want to go with it. And sometimes just tweaking it just a tiny bit, like I had used just a tiny little bit of cerulean blue, just to kind of alter that just a little bit. When you're mixing, don't make the mistake of, you know, grabbing giant piles of color and shoving it in there, because you'll just end up with a mess, and you'll end up with gray because you'll over mix it, and then it'll be very difficult to make the color that you want because you're using too large of a quantity. And then some will say, but Katie, what happens if I don't have enough color? Then, you know, how am I going to be able to mix it again? It's like, well, you're mixing the color in the first place, so just remember how you did it. And, you know, just don't overmix. Okay, so now I'm mixing green with red. So you can see how those two colors completely flatten each other out. And it turns into almost like a grayish color. Okay, can you really see how that red and that green, they kind of canceled each other out, and it's a very gray color. I'm going to add a little bit of cerulean blue and a little bit of lemon yellow to kind of bring that value back again. And the main reason I'm doing this is I want to show you how you can rescue a color. So if it goes off the rails, you can bring it back just by mixing the two original primary colors in there, which in this case was lemon yellow and cerulean blue, to bring that vibrancy back again. Okay, so we took it from gray back to vibrant. So I'm putting in a little bit of the dark green, so that way you can, I'm mixing some of the purple into the dark green again to get like a darker color. What I'm doing right now is I am actually, it's off camera right now, but I'm putting together a color to mix that grass green. So I literally went and got some grass and set it aside, and I'm mixing together the colors to make the grass green, and you'll be able to see that in just a moment. Okay, so there I've mixed my grass green. You can see the grass, and so let's test this out here. We're going to test it out on the white paper. Okay, it's pretty good, but we can do better. We can definitely make that a better color. So it needs just a little more desaturation. So I'm going to add a little bit more orange to that dark green color. Mix it up really well, using a little more cerulean blue, a little more lemon yellow. And I'm going to mix those all together, and I'm going to bring that color back to good. So I'm using my eyes back and forth between the grass green, and I'm adjusting it to see what I have. Okay, so the grass green was good. Now I'm going on to the leaf. The leaf was a pretty dark color, so I'm going to have to add a little bit more of this purple to bring that value up closer to the 9. And let's check that. Perfect. There we go. We've got our leaf green color. And now I'm going to create just that little bit of that line that's in the middle of the leaf, which creates a nice yellow color. So I'm mixing just a little bit of that. It's kind of like a chartreuse color with the yellow mixed in with the cerulean blue. And I'm going to get that little vein in that leaf in case you were doing something really close up. Next, I'm going to mix up the colors for the stem of the leaf, which is red. Now this is a maple leaf, and as you can see, the stem of the leaf has, it's red, but it's a very desaturated red. So I'm mixing a little bit of my red color that I mixed earlier, a little bit of white to bring the value down closer to 1. And then I'm going to take a little bit of purple. I'm mixing the purple in there because the stem of the leaf is red, but it's a very desaturated red. And boom, got that pretty close. It needs to be a little bit lighter, I think. So let's see here. No, we got it. Okay, so now we're going to switch to the back of the leaf. And this is a silver maple. So you can see the back of the leaf is kind of a silvery green. So I'm going to need to kind of gray out the green by adding either orange or red. And I'm also going to need to add a fair amount of white to get it to silvery, but not too much. So it's gray, but it's not super white. So I've got my green, and take some white to bring the value down closer towards 1. I'm going to add a little bit of ultramarine blue, which will kind of dull that green, because remember, ultramarine blue is a warm blue. I'm mixing that in there to get the color that I need. Okay, got to mix it thoroughly. And again, always use the back of your palette knife. The top of your palette knife really doesn't help. So I'm going to mix a little bit of red in there to dull that down, but it's that dull red color that I had made for the stem, which makes perfect sense when you think about it, because if the red is in the leaf through the stem, then I can mix some of that color that I mixed earlier to get that color where I need it to be. I'm adding a little bit of brown. Brown's a wonderful color because the burnt umber, you can also use asphaltum, you can also use Van Dyke brown. Those are all good browns. Brown is like a natural neutralizing color. So what you can do is when you're mixing any kind of color, brown is a wonderful go-to as like a neutralizing or desaturizing color. So I'm getting pretty close here. I think let's see, just a little tiny bit more white, and I think we're going to be there. Let's see where we're at now. Mix it well. Almost. Pretty close. Now see how I'm checking the color on my palette knife against the leaf so I can see where I'm going. Added a little bit more white. I'm adding a little bit more purple again. The purple is going to help gray it out a little bit. And it's also going to deepen the color a little bit because the white brought it up a little bit too light. I'm getting so close. I can feel it. I'm getting excited because it's so close. Let's see where we're at now. Oh yeah, there we go. We're getting that. Little tiny bit more white, and I think we're there. Okay, I think we have pay dirt. Look at that. There we go. So I added just a little bit more brown because, you know, being a perfectionist sometimes, you don't have to keep going after this, but sometimes it's fun just to play the game. It's a wonderful game to play, so you can literally match anything. You can grab any object in your kitchen or whatever you want. You see how close that is? That is, you can't even tell the difference between the paint and the leaf except for the sheen. The sheen gives it away. Right? So there you have it. And this concludes our color mixing masterclass for today. And there you can see the palette with all the greens and all the different colors, the purples, the reds, the oranges, all of that. Have a great day and thanks for watching.